7 o'clock, I'll call to order the Victorville City Council meeting and the various related agencies that we will be dealing with tonight: the Redevelopment Agency, the Rail Authority, the Airport Authority, the Water District, the Library, if I didn't say it, Water District. Custom and habit of this council is we begin every meeting first with an invocation. Tonight it'll be given by Reverend Larry Swileman from Trinity Lutheran Church. That will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by our Chief of Police, Captain Mark Taylor. Please stand.
My name is Dr. Larry Spielman from Trinity Lutheran Church, and as is customary in our faith tradition, we are very appreciative of you as servants of the city for what you do, and I think it is incumbent upon all of us to say thank you for your service in this way. Almighty God, we pray that your power, wisdom, courage, insight, gentleness, and understanding would be upon this body as they deliberate the matters before them. Grant them the courage and the insight they need so that the right decisions are made. And even though we may disagree or agree with what is decided, we give thanks to you that people are willing to serve boldly their community in the expressing of opinions and in the deliberations that take place in this room. Bless them now and forever. Amen.
Of the United States of America, and public for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to each and every one of you. We appreciate you being involved with the affairs of your city, and we hope that as we go forward tonight that the items that are of interest to you are handled in a way that you'll feel comfortable with. The business of the city always starts first with the invocation and then the pledge, and then sometimes we have some very special presentations. And tonight is one of those nights. We have the opportunity to be introduced to 8 young ladies who are a vital part of this community and will become far more involved in this community as we go forward. And today we're going to be introduced to the Miss Victorville representatives, and I see some, hopefully all, are in the back of the room, and if they could come forward so they can be introduced. I see a photo op coming, so if you could all kind of line up so that now, Marissa, because you were one of these at one point, I'm going to give you the honor of introducing these ladies.
Hello? Okay. All right. Great. These are the brand new Miss Victorville Queens, just crowned July 12th. And, I'm going to give them the honor of introducing themselves.
Well, first of all, I'd like to apologize. Not all of the queens could make it today. My name is Michelle Fleming. I'm 19 years old, and I am your new Miss Victorville.
Hi, my name's Amanda Yepes. I'm 8 years old, and I'm Miss Victorville.
Hi, I'm Alexis Vasquez, and I am 16, and I am your Miss Teen Victorville.
My name is Savannah Victor Bertado.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, all of you, for being willing to participate in the affairs of the city. You will make wonderful ambassadors and representatives for the city. All of us look forward to working with you over the course of the year in your representative capacities. And thank you for getting involved in something wholesome and good for yourselves as well as for your community. Thank you. Item 1 on each agenda, that is the City Council agenda, the Redevelopment Agency, the Fire Department, the Water District, Rail Authority, Airport Authority, Water District. Item 1 on each of those agendas is the consent calendar. The consent calendar, is the public comment. Public comment is that opportunity afforded by state statute for anyone who wishes to address the council as the council or in its representative capacity for the other agencies that I identified to address us under public comment on any item that you feel is within our jurisdiction and responsibility. Under public comment, of course, we know nothing about what it is you may say to us, and therefore, as a general rule, the council does not respond to public comment. We do ask that you fill out these white cards that are available in the foyer and pass the white cards to the city clerk. That way, if what you share with us requires us to get information to you or requires us to seek additional information from you or to notify you that your concerns are being placed on a future council agenda, we will have the information necessary to communicate with you. So with that in mind, I will start the public comment section, and each speaker is limited to 3 minutes, and the first card and the only card that I have indicating a desire to speak under public comment is Norman Miller. Mr. Miller?
Mayor, council members, my name is Norman Miller, and ever since Topaz was put in between Bear Valley Road and Sycamore, I have asked to have the double yellow lines in front of my road, my street, changed so that they're broken double yellow lines, because right now I'm illegally driving out of my street onto Sycamore to come to the city council meeting. And when I come from 395 on Sycamore, I illegally cross over the double lines to get into my street to go home. So I've asked this almost every meeting or month since that street was put in. So maybe somebody could look at that. Also, a few weeks ago, I called the city manager because I had a problem calling the city. One time I called into the Public Works Department. It was about 7:45. Direct line into the secretary, I guess you would call it, and I got a recording. But first I got a message saying about this, that, no, I'm sorry, that was the water department. Anyway, I called in at 7:45, I couldn't get anybody, just a recording. I called the city operator, she transferred me over to the Public Works Department. I asked to speak to a particular person, and they said, well, they're in a meeting or not by their phone, so they put me on the thing. I waited 5 minutes and did not get an answer. Nobody got back to me. Nobody picked up with the answer machine for a change. So I hung up and I called back again, and I told the secretary I had that person call me back. Eventually they did. But this isn't the only time this has happened. I've called the water department, and I did get a recording then telling about all the problems that the new water department is having. In the meantime, I'm trying to talk to somebody about a water leak, and I'm getting all this other information, and they put you on hold. You don't talk to anybody when you call a department. I think you should always, every single time, no matter what, talk to somebody if you call a department. If you call an individual, maybe not. But if you call a department, there should always be somebody there to answer that phone. And to take that a little bit further, A couple of weeks ago, we get our trash picked up on Thursdays. And it's usually picked up about 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, our green cans. Blue cans are different. Well, that particular Thursday, about 5 o'clock, my green can was still sitting there. The blue can had been picked up. And so I called into sanitation, because once before I called the trash company, and they said, no, you have to go through sanitation. So I just directly called them. And she said, well, they can't pick it up now, so they'll pick it up tomorrow, Friday, which is the day that city's closed. So I said, okay. And we discussed things a little bit because I wasn't happy. But anyway, I said, okay. So Friday at about 4:30, my trash can's still sitting out there. So I know I can't call the city because they're now closed every Friday. So I called the trash company. She said she never got a request to have my trash picked up on Friday. So they'll come out and pick it up on Monday. Well, I had a full trash can. In the green ones, you know, you put garbage in there, you put green stuff in there, you put everything in the green can. So it's sitting out there. The birds are getting to it because the lid was partway open all weekend. That's about 300 feet from my house because I live on 5 acres. So I had to walk 300 feet whenever I had some trash I had to be put in the can. The problem I had with this is that at 5:20, between that and 5:30, the lady I speak to at the city never called me back and said that the trash company was closed at 5 o'clock. She could not get in touch with them. If she had told me that, I would have called Friday morning at 8 o'clock to tell them that my trash can was still there. We're having a problem with communication. And even the city manager said that he didn't like the answering machines. Well, that was even on the news that same day. I didn't get to see it, but a lot of people don't like the answering machines. So anyway, we're just not getting anywhere with the new system. I think it needs to be reworked or looked at some way because this shouldn't happen.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. I have now received a second card for Agenda Item 1, Richard Vargas.
Richard Vargas, thank you. I came here about a month ago. I have a new job working with LFG Printing here in Amargosa. They've been in business about 5 years. And it was my intent to see if the city could save some money in light of the fact of the economy, closing on Fridays, et cetera. Everybody's trying to save money. So the idea was, when I went up to the second floor and talked to somebody up there, and they said, well, each department has its own budget to use for printing needs. And I said, well, wouldn't it be a good idea instead of having each department, again, I don't know how it works as far as the allocation or the spending of the money, but the idea is, instead of having each department figure out who they're going to have print or whatever, to have one printer do all the printing for all the departments, and therefore cutting costs, because if you could get the entire city's printing needs under one budget item, instead of having different people doing it differently with different printers perhaps, and again, I don't know how it was working, that's why I'm here, but at least to alert you to the fact that it'd be possibly saving the city thousands upon thousands of dollars on an annual basis because you're having one printer. And I understand the bidding process. I'm not saying I'm opposed to that because I love competition. That's the American dream. So the idea then is to simply open up the idea, bid it out as much as you want with different printers in the city or whomever, but at least have it centralized so you have all the printing needs done. And then you can, the people at the different departments can still have their requests made as far as what they actually need. But it still would be just, I believe, a lot less money, and therefore save the city money. And you have my contact information. I gave you one business card.
Well, you can leave it with the city clerk.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Vargas. That's all of the cards that I have with regard to Agenda Item 1, public comment on all of the agendas. Is there anyone in the audience who had intended to speak under Public Comment Item 1 and failed to turn in a card? If not, then that concludes public comment. We will now go to the library agenda, and Mr. Hunter, Councilman Hunter, is our liaison to the library. I will turn this part of the meeting over to Mr. Hunter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 1 has been taken care of. Item number 2 is revision to the agenda. I don't believe we have any revisions.
No revisions.
Thank you. Then items 3A and B are the consent calendar. Entertain a motion.
approve.
Second.
May we vote?
And that's all, I believe, Mr. Mayor.
Then we will go to the Rail Authority agenda, and item 3 on the Rail Authority is the consent calendar. There's no changes, a motion would be in order.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, may we vote? That's unanimous. The Rail Authority will be adjourned to Monday, August 11th, 2008 at 4 p.m. For a budget workshop in the council chambers. With that, that would conclude the Rail Authority agenda. We'll go to the Airport Authority.
Excuse me, Chairman Caldwell, we do have consent calendar items on that agenda and a written communications agenda.
You're right. Item 3 is a consent calendar.
Move the item.
Second.
You say there's something in addition to the consent calendar?
There are 2 written communications items, 4 and 5.
On the Rail Authority?
Airport Authority.
Oh, we're on rail.
Not on, oh, that's library.
Oh, excuse me, I thought you were on Airport Authority.
Well, let me find it. Don't think I have that.
No, you're good. We're still on rail, not airport.
Pardon?
We're still on rail, not airport.
You have everything for the rail. It's 3
Okay.
items, and you've done all 3 items.
Oh,
Now
I'm-
to the
now I'm
Airport Authority.
confused.
We're on Airport Authority.
Now we move to Airport Authority.
All right. See if we can get back on track. The Airport Authority, item 3 is the consent calendar.
Move for approval.
Vote. Unanimous. Item 4 is a request to approve a 5-year airport joint lease agreement with the Air Force Reserve regarding the use of SCLA by the 452nd Air Mobility Wing from March and the 60th Air Mobility Wing from Travis. We do have all the information that supports this item. Are there any comments or questions from members of the council?
Move the item.
Second.
Just to make a brief comment that it's 1.6 million in revenue from that airport from the military on that one. So.
Vote.
Good point, Mr. Rothschild. It's also a great opportunity for us to continue supporting the training of our military troops that are pursuing our interests around the world.
That was unanimous. Item 5, proposed resolution SCLAA 08011, which, if adopted, would state the public purpose of the transfer of funds to the Victor Valley Aviation Education Consortium to aid in the aviation education of persons in the Victor Valley, and authorizing the transfer of $60,000 to the Victor Valley Aviation Education Consortium. Any questions or comments from members of the council?
Great opportunity to grow the work-based force here and actually set up careers instead of just jobs. This is a career opportunity educational program out at the airport.
Vote. That's unanimous, and the Airport Authority will also be adjourned to Monday, August 11th, 2008, 4 p.m. For a budget workshop in the council chambers. Redevelopment Agency, public hearing to hear arguments for or against proposed resolution R08009, which, if adopted, would approve an agreement for the acquisition of affordability covenants by and between the Victorville Redevelopment Agency and Amcal Casa Bella Fund, LP. Questions or comments from members of the council? Not, a motion would be in order.
Second.
Mayor, I think that's a public hearing item.
We'll open the public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to be heard for or against, pro or con, on proposed resolution R08009? Hearing none, may we vote? That's unanimous. Agenda item 4 is a consent calendar.
Second.
Unanimous. Now, I have a note that item 5 is to be continued. Is that correct?
That would be on the city council agenda, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Item 5 then is proposed resolution R08010, which if adopted would approve the affordable housing agreement by and between the Victorville Redevelopment Agency and Pacific West Communities, Inc.
Second.
That's unanimous. Item 6 deals with the closed session. The items are set forth on the agenda. At the conclusion of all of the agendas, we will go into closed session on these and other closed session items. And it's not anticipated that there will be any reportable action out of the closed session, but that can't be assured. So people are welcome to wait until council returns from closed session later in the evening. At that time, we will adjourn the redevelopment agency to Monday, August 11th, 2008 at 4 p.m. for a budget workshop in the council chambers. And unless there are any add-on items to the redevelopment agency, that would conclude that agenda. Next would be the Water District agenda. And we do have a revision to item 4, which we'll deal with when we get there. But item 3 is the consent calendar.
Move for approval?
That's unanimous. Item 4, request to award a contract to Genesis Construction, Inc. in the amount of $1,486,500 for construction of Zone 3485 30-inch water transmission main and waive the minor irregularity described in the staff report. We do have a letter submitted on behalf of Elko Contractors regarding the bid opening. And with this, I'll either turn it over to you, Mr. Roberts, or to Mr. Lamson, our manager of the Water District, as you...
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Within the public contracting code and other state documents governing open and competitive bidding, as well as the city municipal code, there is a requirement on certain public works projects that bids be sealed, submitted in a sealed envelope, and be submitted to the city within a specified time on a specified date in a specified location. And the purpose for requiring sealed bids to be cut off at a certain date is that contractors generally are receiving bids from subcontractors and material suppliers right up until the time of bid, and therefore to ensure that no one receives an unfair advantage within bidding, that process must be terminated. In this case, a bid was submitted to the city, but to the wrong department. The bid was handed back to the submitter of the bid, who then had possession of that document and until after the time of the closing of the bidding. Because there was no way for any city official to verify that or have possession of that document entirely after the time of the close of bids, there is no way to ensure that there were no changes made to the bid after the closing date. And therefore, the city would determine then that bid having not been submitted within the time required, and therefore not a valid bid, and it is not on your list for consideration tonight. The lowest bid that was submitted within the time period required is Genesis Construction.
Discuss this with the city attorney, Mr. D. Bortnowski.
Yes, we have.
Do you have anything further to add, Mr. D. Bortnowski?
I agree with Mr. Roberts' analysis.
We have a letter from William J. Brunick, attorney representing Elko Construction. Is a representative of that law firm present? If not, let the record reflect that we do have that letter, and it will be a part of the record. Are there any questions or comments from members of the council?
The only question I would have is, did the bid requirement state where the bid had to be delivered to specifically?
It does specify that, Councilman Hunter, although we are, that is something that we do work with contractors. The fact that if they submitted it, let's say, to a different department within the city, other than the one specified in there, as long as the city maintains possession of that bid package, we will go ahead and deliver it down to the appropriate department, and we would not consider that to be a significant, or we would not consider that to be a deviation that was material affect the bid, and we would still award to that bidding. But the key situation here is whether or not a city official maintained possession of that document. And in this case, it did not. The bidder took the document back, and so between the time that the bidder took the document from one department to the other, we were not able to maintain control of that document.
And I see that point. I guess my comment would be then if someone even touches it at the city, then they should maintain it and not hand it back to the, because these individuals probably have no idea they're not supposed to take it back, other than they're trying to get it here on time and run it. One of our employees took it at the proper time, so I'm a little concerned about that portion of it, because we handed it back to them. Did they have the knowledge they weren't supposed to take it? I'm a little concerned about that.
Well, actually, according to the letter, the employee informed them that she did not have the authority to take nor stamp in the letter. Apparently, the bidder ran in just before bid time, attempted to hand it to a city employee that is not designated within the bidding documents, and then when the employee informed the bidder that she was not the right one to take the document, the bidder themselves chose to take it down to the other department. I think many of our employees that work in areas where this does happen are aware of that, but not every employee in the city is aware of these provisions.
I would make one just observation, and that is that, there's deadlines, and the deadlines are important, and not to put too fine a point on a procedural issue, the fact is that when you're responsible people putting out their responsible bids, they ought to be in at an early moment, not at the last minute. So just on the face of it, it's kind of wondering why you're running in at the last minute on a $1 million bid here. Just doesn't make any sense to me, and I think that most of that responsibility rests on their shoulders, and this seems to be one of those cases.
I have a question. Well, not a question, comment. But when they came in with the bid, somebody accepted it, and why when they just rejected it at that time rather than to? It seems to me like this letter that they accepted it, and so the company believed then that it was going to be reviewed as part of the other bids, according to this letter.
If I may, once the letter was received from Alcon's attorneys, I did do a personal investigation of every minute of that bid from when it came in through City Hall until the city did take it into their possession. Not being sure exactly what time it came in through the door, we can only speculate it came in through the door before 3 p.m., which was the deadline. We do know that the attempt was made by the contractor to submit that bid to the cashier, but the cashier could not accept it. She indicates that it was 2 minutes past 3 when that person came to the cashier's desk. They were directed to go down to the engineering department. We refused to accept it at that point in time because it was 2 to 3 minutes after 3 o'clock. And the bidder then went back to the cashier to try and get the cashier to convince us to take it by indicating that she was in the building before the deadline. The cashier could not leave her post. And so the contractor came back to our counter, where again, for the second time, we refused to take it. Under duress, one of our secretaries did take it, walked it into where the bids had already been, the bid opening had already commenced. There were 23 bids that day. That's one of the highest we've ever had for any public works contract that I can remember. So 23 contractors successfully submitted their bid to the engineering department on time. Through a miscommunication, the late bid was included in the bid opening, but after the protest letter from Genesis and my investigation, it bypassed a vital step, which was to have the date, stamp, and time, and initialed by one of my staff for that bid to be accepted. And we therefore had indicated to the contractor that even though we opened the bids, we thought he was the apparent low bidder, that his bid was submitted late and we couldn't accept it.
Sean,
This was done in conformity with the Public Contracts Code?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor, yes.
Sean, does the bid, and this is what I mentioned earlier, does it state that bid has to be delivered to the engineering department by 3 o'clock?
In the notice inviting bids and the instructions to bidders, there's 3 places where there's clear instruction to submit it to the engineering department. And as I said earlier, 23 bids that were responsive bids made it into our possession by the deadline.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we stipulate where it's supposed to go, that there's no question they know it should go to engineering.
It is very clear, but as Mr. Roberts stated earlier, you know, if somebody gets it into the building, into city possession, that becomes minor if it's on time. But when it's late and then it gets back into the contractor's possession, that changes that position.
Very good, thanks. And I,
To no fault of our own, no matter what we do, we run substantial risk of being sued.
There's certainly
the bidder that follows the guidelines and loses is going to be upset, and the bidder who didn't follow the guidelines thinks that we should give them a break, could sue us. So
that's true.
We lose all the way around. Further questions or comments from members of the council? Well, the staff recommendation is to award the bid to Genesis.
move it.
Vote. It's unanimous. Item 5, a request to approve a notice of determination for the drilling and equipping of wells number 142 on APN 3092, 17134, and 144 on parcel APN 3092, 18135, in the amount of $1,926.75.
Second.
It's unanimous. Item 6, proposed resolution VWD 08012, which, if adopted, would have the Victorville Water District setting the time and place for a public hearing on the proposed Water District service fee increase and directing staff to proceed with the special notice proceedings. I do have a series of cards wishing to address the issue, and I will take them in the order submitted. Gene Selig.
Thank you very much, Mayor Caldwell and members of the City Council. I'll be very brief. I may be in the minority here because I will be glad to pay the increase that you suggest. However, there is a but. I want you to put into this new raise some provisions. I want you to authorize somebody in the city to cite the people who water so excessively that it runs across the sidewalk and into the street. And if you need proof of that, I invite you to Eagle Ranch. And I talked to a member of the audience here tonight, and the words he used was, every intersection is flooded. And city engineer who's here tonight will tell you that the corner of Topaz and La Mesa had to be repaved not long ago because the standing water got down into the street surface and ruined it. And that standing water was there most all the time. The other item is that I would suggest that you tell the developers no more lawns. We're in the desert. It's very simple to have a beautiful rockscape. I've had one at my house for 15 years. I never had a lawn since the house was first built. I don't want to push a lawnmower. And even though my neighbors have nice lawns, I don't want one. So my water bill is very reasonable. The other thing that I would like to point out is the first thing that happens when a house goes empty for whatever reason is the bank or the mortgage company, somebody owns the house. And the first thing they do is shut off the water, the gas, and the electricity. I invite you to call me at any time. I will pick you up in my Honda. I want to show you about a half a dozen houses. It doesn't look good in the neighborhood, Mayor Caldwell. They're deteriorating so fast that I doubt that anybody will ever buy them. I think that some of these houses will eventually be bulldozed. And the very last item that I want to say to you is, I appreciate what you're doing, but you don't have enough code enforcement people. There's too much for them to do. I see the red light is on, I'm done. There's so much for them to do. The abandoned houses, the signs all over the place. I don't do them anymore. There's a lot that can be done. And if you go after the sign people, money in the bank. Thank you very much for allowing me to address you. And thanks for the cameras, Bob. They're working.
Thank you, Mr. Selig. Assuming that the proposed resolution is adopted, there will be a public hearing, and I would invite you to come back at the public hearing. And
I'll say it again, what I said tonight.
And the notes that you periodically send me about the code enforcement issues and specifically the signs, I want you to know that I send a copy of your notes to every member of the City Council, every department head, and even the city manager, Mr. Roberts. So,
thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Selig.
This team is doing a good job.
Mr. Seelig, if I might, just so you know, a little over a year ago, we passed an ordinance where new development cannot put grass in the front yard any longer. It has to be xeriscape. So just so you know, new development can't put grass in the front anymore.
Yeah, we don't need lawns.
We haven't got any new development right now to show
Rocks, if they're done right, look really great. And if you drive around to some of the people who can afford lawns and nice houses, they've done rockscape, and they're just gorgeous. Thank you very much.
Well, not to beat this subject to death, I happen to agree with you, but you cannot believe the heat that I'm taking over the city's decision to remove turf and replace it with desert landscaping.
I can believe it.
There are people who don't understand that we live in an arid climate in the desert.
They'll understand it when they turn the tap on and there's no water coming out. That's when they'll understand it, not before.
Good point.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Selig. Next up, Norman Miller.
Mayor, council members, excuse me, name is Norman Miller again. And I kind of like to go along with Mr. Selleck there with one thing. The water in the gutter, a lot of that's coming from Hollyville Park and School. So that would be a good place to maybe check to where all this extra water is coming from in the street. I have a couple questions, though, about this proposed rate increase. I was looking at the chart, and it says it's 26.5% the first year. Well, it looks like it's 38.5% for the 3 years. So that's a lot bigger figure than 26.5, and that's what it's going to be if it goes through. So, to me, this sounds like it's worse than what Apple Valley Water was asking for. You know how those people were complaining. And the bottom line on this is a lot of people can't afford this kind of an increase. You know, they hardly can afford what they're doing now. An example of that is we haven't had a water bill for 2.5 months. We haven't had a sanitation bill for 2.5 months. What's going to happen when this bill comes through to these people on fixed incomes or don't make the money? They're putting all their money into gas to get down the hill to do their job. Now you're going to throw them a bill. I looked at my bill, excuse me, it's $36 plus all the add-ons. So that means it's going to go up 38% in the next 3 years. That's a lot of money every month. Well, I'm going to get hit with about $100 and some this first bill that comes through. I don't know how you're going to handle that. There's people who won't be able to pay their bill. People won't even know what's going on. They'll figure they've paid their bill, and why are they getting this great big bill or whatever? You better be looking into that kind of a problem, because it is a problem. Maybe you should go back to the old system and get it straightened out, and when you know how to do it right, then send the bills out. Apparently you haven't done that. You've had a year almost to do that, but apparently it isn't getting done right. Anyway, on to the increase. All of this, as far as I know, is paper water. I don't know any of this water is going to be put into Victorville or the Victor Valley. As you know, I was on the Baldy Mesa Water Board. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars buying water, and not one drop has been put into the Baldy Mesa area. And I don't think one drop's been put into the Victorville area either, for the ratepayers, for the homeowners, for the people that are going to pay this extra money. If this money is going to go to the MWA to buy state water, be sure it buys state water, not more beautiful buildings for the MWA, or for more consultants to tell us that we have to pay more water for state water. I know you buy water locally, so why do you have to buy all of this state water? Let's keep buying the local water. Tell the MWA to keep their water. We're pumping all of our own water. We haven't bought any water from the aqueduct. For these last 9 years or so, we're still pumping water out of Baldy Mesa. So what's all this doing for us? It's putting water down in Barstow or whatever. Or it's making that MWA building look better. I don't think that's where our money should be going.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Well, I'm not sure I'm done.
Time's up.
I have one other thing. They took the money from Baldy Mesa after we did a master plan, and when we joined in with the city with Victor Valley Water. I think it was about $600,000 they took from the money that we wanted to take and use for bringing down our standby fees. And it was decided to take that money and do another master plan through the Victorville. I would say Victor Valley Water, but I guess that's not accurate, but still to me, it was Victor Valley Water.
Mr. Miller, I'm going to stop you. You've raised that issue multiple times. That issue has been addressed by city staff multiple times. That's not the issue before us tonight. The issue before us tonight is to set the hearing for the water service fee increase. If you want to meet with Reggie Lamson, our water director, to go over that old issue of the $600,000, he's in the audience. You can go talk to him right now and set a time to come and talk to him about that. But that is not the issue that is before us tonight.
I'd like to make one more comment then about the water.
Way beyond your time, Mr. Miller.
Well, my wife has a 3-minute card in there. She can give me her
Well,
minutes.
that's up to her. You're through.
After, okay.
Through, Mr. Miller.
I guess
Thank
I am.
you.
Okay.
Dorothy Miller?
Dorothy Miller, Demeron Road, City of Victorville. We're having a little problem here. This has been going on for a long time, and things have not been taken care of properly. And I don't know what you guys are going to do about it, but we need to get it taken care of. This raising our water fees, some don't pay standby fees. We pay standby fees. We pay for the arsenic treatment plant. They have hooked up the tanks on Sycamore to the arsenic treatment plant. Victor Valley Water don't pay for any of the arsenic treatment plant. Now, wait a minute. I think the people from Baldy Mesa has really gotten taken here. And I think the city is one unit now, took both of them in together. Everything should be the same. If you're going to charge me standby fees, they should pay standby fees. But this is not happening. This is not right. And I really feel you people should sit back and look at it and see exactly what's going on. Everybody should be treated the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Gary Douglas.
Mr. Mayor, honorable council members, Gary Douglas. I'm really concerned over this reported 26% increase, 26% increase on the water rate that was reported in the daily press. First and foremost, because this is a city utility, I know that it falls under Proposition 218. Proposition 218 tells us that proper notification must be mailed to every water district payer, ratepayer. It says right in the law. And then 45 days from that letter received by us homeowners, we should have a meeting. Well, the newspaper, the daily press, is not the mail to my home. It's the daily press. So I think we need to set some precedent here and follow proper procedure according to Proposition 218. Am I not right, Mr. City Attorney?
Direct your questions to the council.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Sorry to put you in that spot. Since I've been here in Victorville, and actually I did a little research before I came into the council meeting this evening, there are 5,000 homes in foreclosure. There are over 5,000 homes that have been foreclosed upon. That's 10,000 empty homes. What are we really trying to do here? We know that these folks aren't using the water, and I don't feel that I need to be paying 26% increase because the water rate or the water payers aren't there. I think this is unfair, and I would also ask this council to consider any raises in any fees only after the election. Thank you.
Mr. Douglas, although I don't think anyone would disagree with your premise about proper notification, that is the whole purpose of tonight's agenda item, is to adopt a resolution which will set a date and a time at which point all of the people in the water districts will be notified. We could not do that until such time as this council acts in its capacity as the governing board of the water district. Assuming that the proposed resolution is adopted tonight, then there will be the information available for us to do the notification that you're suggesting with regard to Prop 218.
Okay, so in other words, and may I ask one question? We won't be making a date 45 days from today. We will actually be making a date 45 days after the letters have been sent out to the water.
Well, I don't know what the date's going to be, but the purpose of this agenda item is to adopt a resolution which would then set the time and place for the public hearing, and then that notification will go to the people. Okay. I don't know what that date's going to be.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Robert Bithorn, if I pronounced it correctly.
Evening, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to make a comment, on the rate increases. A lot of people had made it clear that there's a lot of people who are on fixed incomes. Not myself. I get a retirement and I still work. But there are a lot of people who are on fixed incomes, and then the housing foreclosures also, like the other speakers have spoken about with this proposed water hike. And I was just thinking maybe you would consider lowering the interest rates on senior citizens and people who are pretty much on fixed incomes. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Roberts or Mr. Lamson, clearly there is some misunderstanding or confusion about what this proposed rate increase is about. And although the issue before us is simply to adopt the resolution to set the hearing, perhaps a short explanation of what the rate increase is about would be in order.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't remember the exact year right now, but in a landmark action, all of the purveyors and nearly every party interested in water rights signed on to the adjudication, which was the court-ordered process to settle a lawsuit that had been filed by the city of Barstow against the Victor Valley over their concerns of overdrafting of the Mojave River area watershed basin. And in order to settle that lawsuit, the parties came together and agreed to an adjudication, which then called for a physical solution to the overdrafting of the Mojave River area watershed basin. That physical solution that each entity and interested party signed on to placed the Mojave Water Agency as the water master responsible for implementing the physical solution, which required the importation of state project water to replenish the aquifer to enhance what naturally occurs, which for 30 years we have been over pumping. In order to facilitate the funds necessary for the Mojave Water Agency acting as the water master to purchase the state project water, each one of the parties that signed on to the adjudication agreed that they would be assessed on an annual basis their pro rata share of the cost of importing the water. That adjudication was agreed to and signed on by the Board of Directors of the Victor Valley Water District, as well as the Board of Directors of the Baldy Mesa Water District, as well as the City of Victorville, who is a stipulating party to the adjudication. Upon dissolution of those two districts and the formation of the unified district under the City of Victorville, those obligations entered into by those stipulating parties now become an obligation of our consolidated district, and we are required under that adjudication in the court order to pay our fair share of the importation of water by the Mojave Water Agency acting as the water master. As with everything else, the cost of importing water from the state is going up. The state of California determines what those charges are going to be and passes those charges along to each one of the contractors to the aqueduct. In our case, that's the Mojave Water Agency. And then the Mojave Water Agency passes those charges along with some administrative charges onto the City of Victorville. So these charges that are outlined are going to be charged to every water purveyor within the Alto sub-basin where we pump our water, and we must raise the rates in order to provide that money to the Mojave Water Agency. The entire amount of this rate increase is related only to the increased cost to pay the Mojave Water Agency. There is no additional revenue being generated from this amount.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. And just to correct one misstatement, there is acquisition of water from the state project, Mr. Miller. I can't tell you the number of acre feet that are being acquired every year, but Mr. Kirby Brill at the MWA could give you the right number. There is annual takeouts from the aqueduct as well as the city itself. So you might want to give Mr. Brill a call and get that number.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just make a couple more points. The standby fee and arsenic fees that were referred to by Mrs. Miller, those were adopted by the Baldy Mesa Board of Directors prior to consolidation within the City of Victorville. And under the LAFCO action that consolidated those two districts into the city, we are required to maintain those as separate accounts. So her observation that the fees are being charged differently to District 1 and District 2, that was a requirement of the LAFCO consolidation. And also I think it's worth pointing out that although this fee increase is entirely driven by the Mojave Water Agency, after the consolidation of the two water districts, the City of Victorville in fact reduced rates to customers in some of its districts.
Any other questions or comments from members of the council?
I just have one. You said that everyone would be notified. Are we going to put it in their water bill, or how are we going to notify each?
Mr. D. Bortnowski will have to give instructions to our staff as to how we meet the 218 notification requirements. I don't know what that is.
We do have to mail to every property owner that's affected by the rate increase.
Thank you.
Further questions or comments?
Question. If we didn't adopt a resolution, we would still be charged IMWA. We would still have that obligation, so we would have to recover those funds from.
Correct.
Well,
As a stipulating part of the adjudication, we're under court order to pay our fair share of replenishing this aquifer with the water that we pump.
Any other questions or comments? If not, we have before us proposed resolution VWD 08012, which if adopted would set the time and place for a public hearing on the proposed water service fee increase and directing staff to proceed with the special notice proceeding as required by law. Motion? Moved and seconded. May we vote? Unanimous. Agenda item 7, request to approve the First Amendment to the payback reimbursement agreement between Serrano Hills LLC and the Victorville Water District. Questions or comments from members of the council? Not, a motion would be in order. Moved and seconded. May we vote? Passes unanimously. That concludes the Water District agenda. We now move to the City Council agenda. We've already taken care of item 1, which is public comment. I am not aware of any revisions to the agenda item as prepared, but I do have an urgency item to place on the agenda, and that we get to the conclusion of this agenda, I will then raise the urgency item. With that, item 3 is the consent calendar. These items have been predetermined to be routine and non-controversial. They'll be adopted with one motion unless there's a request for removal.
Move for approval.
Moved and seconded. May we vote? That's unanimous. Item 4, request to reject all bids for the National Trails Highway Mojave River Bridge retrofit project and authorize staff to modify the current design and re-advertise the project. Council has the staff materials that deal with this. Are there any further questions or comments of staff? Any further comments from staff?
We're optimistic that next time around we'll receive more than one bid.
Is there a motion?
Move. Second.
Vote. That's unanimous. Item 5 is the one that I have a note saying this is to be continued to August 19th.
As a request of staff, Mr. Mayor.
Any opposition from council? Not a public hearing item, so item 5, which deals with the contracts for the supply of electricity, will be continued to August 19th. Agenda item 6, proposed resolution 08125, which if adopted would order the submission to the qualified electors of the city tax measure relating to the transient occupancy tax, giving notice of the holding of the special election and conforming with all of the rules and regulations associated with that items. This is the bed tax as it's more commonly referred to. Questions or comments from members of the council? Anything further from staff? Been moved and seconded. May we vote? That's unanimous. Item 7, request to adopt proposed resolution 08132, which if adopted would approve that certain addendum number 1 to the limited notice to proceed with Kiewit Power Constructing Company. Questions or comments? Moved and seconded. May we vote? That is unanimous. We have an urgency item that I've asked to be placed. The urgency is that this item came up after the agenda was prepared. As you can tell from the staff write-up, Mr. Rothschild, who is our representative to the Mojave Desert and Mountain Integrated Waste Management, JPA, wants to go on vacation on the 14th and can't attend. I am his alternate, and I am now scheduled to go to a water conference so that I can understand more about what Mr. Lamson is doing in that way. He has more agenda items now than any other of the departments, so we've got to find out what's going on. So they've got an arcane rule that says nobody else from the city can go and represent the city unless we have some official action. So that is the reason that this is coming up, because August 14th is around the corner, and the city of Victorville needs to be represented.
Yeah, we just this one meeting, we need a substitute.
Just for this one meeting. Well, then I guess we have to have a staff person go, Mr. Roberts.
I think we need a ruling if that's permissible. I'm not sure staff could be permitted to.
The mayor will give you a note.
That would depend on the terms of the JPA, if you can appoint alternates. I'm not familiar with that JPA.
Well, let's take the action. If the JPA wants to deny Victorville's right to participate and vote, fine, but...
I don't think they would deny our right to participate. I think they would deny our right to have a voting, if we can't have a council member there to have the vote. But I think a staff person representing the city and being there and participating there, I don't think there's enough people there that I don't think it becomes a critical mass issue. Well,
who would be the best person from staff to go and voice the city's position?
Well, are we expecting there to be an item on their agenda that we need to be participating in that vote? Because I'd hate to take an action tonight to designate a staff member if their bylaws or articles of incorporation do not allow that.
I would assume they would allow for some type of proxy like that, but some JPAs are mandate that it be one of the actual elected officials, so I don't know what their JPA arrangement is.
Well, I think we should nominate whoever it is. If we later determine that they can't go, or if they go, they can't speak, or if they're allowed to speak but they can't vote, they'll be guided accordingly. But if we don't take the action tonight, we're not going to be able to do anything, including sending a shoe clerk to the meeting.
Are you volunteering?
Roberts, it's your call. They're your troops.
Well, if there's no council member available, it doesn't appear like anybody's volunteering. I would nominate Jimmy.
Mayor, you need to first actually take a motion to add the item to the agenda pursuant to Government Code
I'll move the
54954.
urgency item be added to the agenda for the reasons stated.
Second.
Vote. Unanimous. Mr. Hunter made the motion. Who seconded?
Aye.
Moved and seconded. May we vote? That's unanimous. That concludes the agenda items except for council reports. Gabrielis?
Just one item. Now that we're a chartered city, I would like to request, and it might even be in the process now, because we've talked about it before, is we have the ordinances and court enforcement related, that maybe we can streamline so you don't have to wait, 5 years before you can take action on some of these nuisances. And like it was mentioned before, there are a lot of houses out there that are, being deteriorated because there's no upkeep. And so I think we need to beef up the code enforcement and the ordinances so we don't have to wait too long to take action on these properties.
Holman? Rothschild? Mr. Hunter? Mr. Roberts?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
I have nothing. That then concludes the regular agenda, except for closed session. We will go into a closed session for the items set forth in items 9, 10, and 11 for the reasons set forth in the printed agenda. As said earlier, it's not anticipated that there'll be any reportable action at the conclusion of the closed session, but that can't be guaranteed. You're welcome to stay and see. If for some reason we come out and the room is empty, we will understand and we will not be offended. And when we complete the closed session, then this city council meeting will be adjourned, as some of the other agency items were, until Monday, August 11th, 2008 at 4 p.m. for a budget workshop in the council chambers.
Mayor, for the record, I do not need the closed session on item number 10. I do need number 9 and 11 on the city council agenda.
Okay. Thank you for attending. Council's come out of closed session on the items that were enumerated in the agenda. There is some reportable action. I will ask the city attorney to read into the record the reportable action.
With respect to agenda item number 11, the city council has decided to proceed with settlement agreements with Johnson on parcel number 0460-23222 at a purchase price of $250,000. Malima on parcel number 0460-242, parcel 25 for $272,000, and Thorn, parcel number, APN number 0460-23208 for $248,000, contingent on verification that, in fact, the appraisal is a valid appraisal amount.
With that, that concludes the council agenda, and the council meeting, along with the other items that identified, will be adjourned to Monday, August 11th, 4 p.m., these chambers for a budget workshop. Thank you, and good night.